Hi, what's going on? I'm Lawrence Means, author of um, Reverse Racism. I'm here at News Regional Library. I got a few books. A couple of them are in there. Reverse Racism is a novel. I got that in there. It's under the local authors section. I want to talk about just, me being in Kinston, my experience living in Kinston, small part of it, but and my stance, and the caption there, if you read it, I got a couple links to a couple of the books that I've written, and if you've been on my Facebook profile, you might see that I talk about race. And it has a lot to do with my experience living here in Kinston. It's a funny story. I got this funny story to tell and I put it on in this group Word of Mouth Kinston. I think I might post this video to it, and so y'all can check it out. But I'll go down here to this pharmacy. I've been using it ever since I moved to East Kinston. I used to live up off of 258 North up there. But then I moved down here to East Kinston in town. I actually like living down here better if I'm going to be, in this section of the country or whatever. And so I've been using this pharmacy down the street, man, and I always just get a funny feeling, funny looks and stuff like that. But I'm a mild mannered guy, man. I'm a polite person. I let a lot of stuff ride. I mean, it's not a whole lot of things. I mean, I'm not worried about anybody. I'm not complaining or anything. But there are definitely opportunities where I could get loud, or I could be a jerk, and I could say something to people. And a lot of times I just don't. I just let things slide because honestly, I like my peace. However, I'm a human being, and I do say some things sometimes. So anyway, there's been quite a few times where I went in there and I really didn't feel welcome. But I brush it off. I'm like, well, that's just how some people are. Maybe I don't look like the average customer that comes in there. And so, people is just how they are, man. I try not to hold stuff against people. I try not to let nobody's shit become part of my story, or, let them rent space. You know how that go. And so I went in there because I was actually returning to get the rest of a prescription. I had went to see my doctor to get a refill, to get a checkup and get a refill. And she was like, well, the order that I made, they didn't give you all of what you were supposed to get. They gave you a partial order. She was like, all you got to do is just go down there and let them know. I'm like, oh, okay. So I go down and I explain it to them and everything. And I was talking to the one lady. I was talking to this one woman at the counter. She was a clerk, and I was just explaining to her that, I didn't get all of the order. My doctor told me she ordered a certain amount, but you guys only gave me such and such. And she was telling me, okay, well, that's going to cost more. Well, when she said that, I was just a little confused. I didn't get loud with nobody. Not at that point. I didn't say anything out the way, but I just said, well, I don't understand how I'm supposed to pay. How am I supposed to pay for what you owe me, right? And if it's such a certain price, then we should have discussed that when I came in the first time. And so at that point, another guy that was behind her, he jumped into the conversation, man. And it was like he was irritated. And he was short with me, and I was just asking him, I was like, well, how does that work? And he was saying some things, but of course, if you know me, I lost my hearing, so it's a little difficult for me to, you know, converse with people. But what I am really good at is facial expressions. He was acting like it was a burden to him. I was really, really bothering him by just asking questions, you know. And I said it again. So whatever, like, you know, how am I supposed to pay for something that I already paid for, that I already got? You know, the mistake was on you guys. You gave me a partial prescription. You didn't say that it was partial. I didn't even know that it was a partial prescription until I went back to my doctor, like I said earlier. And I mean, he's just like disgusted with me. He's like grabbing the phone and he's like, his face all screwed up and everything. And so I said, well, how about this? I pulled out my insurance card. I was like, how about this? Will this pay for it? He's like, no, he ain't even look at it. He's like, nah. I was like, so that's when I started getting agitated with him. I said, so what? I was like, you treating me, man, like I'm saying something that's unreasonable. That's what he's like, you know, basically like, the fuck you look. You take it or leave it. He don't care. And he started laughing like, you know. And mind you, I'm coming into a place of business, right? You go into a pharmacy, they always got a consultation counter where, if nothing else, they supposed to be able to explain to you the medication, how it works, how to take it and everything, because this is federally, you know what I'm saying? This is state-run type shit here. This is serious business at the pharmacy. These are controlled substances. And so when he was just really kind of being a jerk about it. He was totally unprofessional, but aside from being totally unprofessional, he was just really being a jerk. Now, maybe he was having a bad day. But we all have bad days. Maybe it's something else going on with him. Maybe he was having a family issue. Maybe he was pissed off about politics. I don't know. But he was really unprofessional. He was really being a jerk. I wasn't really being empathetic to him. I had been getting serious too. And so I was like, so what, is it funny to you? And he says, yeah. He goes like this, yeah, it's funny. That's when I told him he was a real fucking jerk. Yeah, I told him he was a fucking jerk. And, you know, of course, at that point, I'm done. It wasn't like I was going to just, you know, spaz out over some. I already knew what I was going to do. I was just going to go back to my doctor. But before I left, I told that guy he was a real fucking jerk. And so I walked out. Now, I went back and I talked to my doctor about it, and I Googled it. I had a good idea that, you know, they're not supposed to do stuff like that. They're not supposed to give you a partial prescription for anything. Like I said, this is serious business. It's a pharmacy. It's drugs. It's pharmaceuticals. Everything is supposed to be on the up and up. It ain't supposed to be, oh, we can just give you part of it now and forget about the rest. And, you know, it don't work like that. And so I went back and I spoke to my doctor about it. I had a real good conversation with one of the nurses. And they got me straightened out. They got me squared away. And not only that, come to find out that my insurance did cover it. Now, they said that the nurse told me that they have me on record paying for that medication. I went and I checked my records because, of course, I run a business, so I got records for everything. Every time I don't spend 5 cents without recording it. So I go back, I check my books, I'm looking at it, I don't see where I paid for it. And although I could have spent cash, if I do have cash on me, I'll record where I just took out cash, but I don't record every cash transaction. So maybe I was mistaken about that. But here's the thing. My insurance did cover the medication, and I only ended up having to pay a small copay for it. They paid for the majority of the prescription. So if I did pay out of pocket at that pharmacy down the street, why didn't they take my insurance the first time? Secondly, when I came back in, why was he such a jerk about it? He couldn't even look at my card and then say, oh, well, you know, sorry, sir, we don't take that, unless he had a problem with treating me like that. So, okay. I got it straightened out. I was cool with it. I went home and then I thought about it. It's this group, word of mouth Kinston or whatever, and I'm a writer, so I like to write stuff to make people laugh, and so I wrote about the situation. I did it in a comical way, but of course here comes all these people, and I said, what's the deal with that hillbilly pharmacy down there on Queen Street? And so because I used the term hillbilly, all of these people, well, not that many. It wasn't that many comments. I guess it's probably about 20 or 30 comments, but I'd say it was probably about a good 6 or 7 people, accused me of being racist. And that's where I want to talk about my history in this town, man. I grew up in Baltimore City. I spent the majority of my childhood in Baltimore City. I was also an Army brat and an Air Force brat too, so I've been a few other places. But the majority of my childhood I spent in Baltimore City during a time when it was just majority black. I didn't notice when I was growing up, but there was this thing called white flight, where in a lot of major cities, black people were getting more money. They was moving up. They was getting these houses in these neighborhoods that was, used to be predominantly white. And as they were doing that, white people were moving out. And I lived in that process. My grandparents bought a real nice house in a neighborhood that was predominantly white, and I didn't really notice it because I remember when I was a kid, there was a lot more white people that lived in that neighborhood. And straight up down, just being honest, man, it was a lot of cool white people. I don't remember no white people. I don't remember no disgruntled white people in the neighborhood that I grew up with. I mean, one of my first friends was a white girl that lived across the street. There was Miss Connie, that had this big ass dog, looked like Marmaduke. They was all really friendly. They all knew me. It was all cool. Everybody in the neighborhood knew our dog. White people would job, and then here's something funny, right? I grew up like 5 blocks from Memorial Stadium. That's where the Orioles used to play. And so a lot of times people from outside the city would come to the city. They park in our neighborhood. Man, white people knew our dog. They would walk past our house and say, "Hi, Bogey," and don't speak to nobody else. Like, Bogey was a person. Anyway, so when I moved here, man, it was like the smallest things you say. I was always getting accused of being a racist. I can't say anything about racism. I can't say anything about being treated unfairly or anything. I remember my first day of school at North Lenore High School. Now, here's another funny story. I knew growing up, I had just started smoking. I started smoking cigarettes at an early age, but I knew that it was wrong. Me and my friends had to stand outside the store and get somebody older to cop cigarettes for us. But something that I noticed before I went to North Lenore was I was at my grandparents moved down here. I was at my grandparents' house, and I was in the bathroom smoking a cigarette. And my granddad opened the bathroom door. And I thought that was my ass, But he ain't say nothing. And later on that day, he said to me, "Now I see who been smoking up all my damn cigarettes." He was like, "You need some cigarettes? I'll get you some." And from that point on, my granddad would buy me cigarettes, man. I was like, what? 16 or 17 years old. As a matter of fact, no, I was about 15 or 16 because this was before I moved here. I was just visiting. So I was like, oh, well, that's how they do down south. I guess it makes sense. They work in the tobacco fields. I guess it shouldn't be a big deal for you to smoke at a young age. So anyway, I go to North Lenore, man, and I see a bunch of kids now. At the time, I didn't really look at at their race or whatever. I just saw us a bunch of kids huddled up outside the cafeteria smoking. So once again, I'm like, well, yeah, man, that's what kids do in the South. They smoke cigarettes. I think I lit that cigarette up and took like 2 puffs off of it before a teacher snatched me up. And that's the first time I'm in the principal's office. I'm like, for what? You were smoking. You know you're not supposed to smoke. I'm like, every fucking body was smoking. And because I would say stuff like that, because I would point stuff like that out, you're a racist. This teacher told me one day, bless your pea picking heart. I didn't understand that. I mean, nobody never told me that before. And I just said to her, I don't pick peas. What do you mean? I used to stay in trouble, man. And then don't stop pointing out blatant racism. We talk about things like that. Miss Thorpe, talk to Mr. Thorpe about that kind of stuff, man. They just loved calling me a racist. So that's part of my history here. I said that hillbilly pharmacy down there on the street, and of course they all want to jump in on the comment and start calling me a racist and trying to justify it and assuming all this shit. Now, I never said what color the person that I was talking to was. I never said nothing about his race. I never said nothing about him in particular. So as far as anybody know, reading it, I could have been talking about any one of them. But because I said hillbilly, all hillbillies ain't white, first of all, you know. And as a matter of fact, I know a lot of, I didn't really want to get into this because into a long explanation, but I'm going to do it here. You know how they talk about hillbillies, they say they inbred, they say they stupid and stuff like that. Well, I did a report on this too when I was in college, man, about why they say things like that. You know, they talk about West Virginia. They say that people in West Virginia got low IQ and they inbred and all these different kinds of things. Well, the reason why they say things like that about Appalachian people who live in the Appalachian Mountains, people that's called hillbillies, is because they got diverse communities. It's not just white people that's hillbillies. And as a matter of fact, it was, some whites, yeah, but it was also Native Americans and blacks. People would go up there and they would kind of live separate, apart from what was going on in the rest of America. So you would have people intermingling, different people are different quote-unquote races. And I'm going to get to why I use quotation marks, but you have people from different quote-unquote races intermingling and having children. And so because those children were quote-unquote biracial or whatever, because people in America are so ignorant and they're jerks, they say things about them like they're inbred, they stupid, they're mongrels. So that's why you had that. But then also too, West Virginia married the first interracial couple. And that's why they say things. So, of course, I guess when I said hillbilly, that sparked some people thinks, I guess because, and a lot of people too, I guess, like I said before, I'm not the typical kind of customer that goes into that pharmacy down there. A lot of those people loved them, so they took offense because I called them a bunch of hillbillies. And I was using it to be funny and as an insult. But it wasn't because of his race. It was because he was being a real jerk. And it made me think about the movie Deliverance, where they stopped and asked for directions, and the guy pulled out a shotgun and said, "Back the way you came." And that's how they make me feel a lot of times when I go in there, like I'm just unwelcome. So yeah, I said it's a hillbilly pharmacy down there. But you want to take hillbilly and try to make this argument about race, and me saying race, well, that shows how ignorant you are, because hillbillies aren't all white people. And so many things that have to do with American culture, but with that culture, like the banjo came from Africa. The American banjo is derivative. It's a different form of the African instrument. There's so many things like that, man. So we all are here. We all here. We all in America, man. And the problem ain't separation. The problem ain't never been some people dividing and all these things they like to say about causing division, all that shit, because we ain't never been separated. The problem is how we get along with people when we're together. And as far as me, I'm going to tell you, man, this place, this town, this county, Lenore County, Kinston, North Carolina, from the time I was a teenager, you know, this place has really, really inspired me to do a lot of research and to study and learn, man. And I've never been as short-sighted as to blame an entire group of people for my experience with one or two of them. Just because that guy's a jerk, I still know white guys. I still know white women. Man, it's a white woman in this town. I love her to death. She looked out for me, man, did some things for me when nobody else would. You know, I can say that about a couple people. But for you to ask me not to speak up on things that affect me and that are wrong is saying that you don't care about me. So yeah, I'm gonna speak on it. Yeah, I said something about it. You know, the way they acted in that store, and that's not the first time that happened, but the way they acted in that store that day, it was just unnecessary. It was uncalled for, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I said something about it, and I made a Facebook post about it. And another thing, too, if I wanted to say something about race, I ain't got to backtrack and lie and hide and twist my words, because who the fuck are you? You don't have nothing for me. Ain't none of y'all paying me no money. I ain't trying to hide no shit or nothing. So, hide my personality or switch up and be a certain way. I don't have to do that, you know. And I got books. If you look at my page, it's all up and down. I wrote, I'm the author of Reverse Racism. I'm the author of Us Divided by Race. I'm the author of Niggas Is Fucking Crazy. I'm the author of the 10-Point Manual, Recovery from Dereliction, Addiction, and Hopelessness. I'm the author of The Savior. Okay, so all you gotta do is look at my page. I'm not hiding nothing. I don't pull no punches. And I ain't worried about nobody. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gotta switch up and tell you one thing and try to make pretend and play fake and use twisted language, alternative facts, and truthful hyperboles to try to hide what I'm really trying to say. No, I'm gonna say what I'm saying straight up. That's what it means, yes. And I didn't use no twisted language or nothing. As a matter of fact, the only thing, this is what I did do when I wrote that post, is I was vague, and I was intentionally vague because I didn't really want to slander the pharmacy. Okay, fine. I had a little tit for tat with one person in there, but I don't feel like, you know, I'm not trying to bring the whole building down or no shit like that, because to me it wasn't even that serious. And so I was intentionally vague. I said that hillbilly pharmacy down there on Queen Street. So yeah, of course, if you from Kinston, if you know, you know, but that don't mean everybody know. You know, I could have been living in Grifton. I could have been in Grifton. Grifton got a Queen Street too. LaGrange got a Queen Street, if I'm not mistaken. I could have been talking about a few places. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't specify who I was talking to, but this one woman who really in her feelings, I realized that, you know, I just stopped talking to her because I realized she was beyond the point of rational conversation. She's really, really upset, so I had to let her have that to herself. I'm not getting ready to get emotional with her, but she tried to to make it into something that it wasn't. And she said at one point there's only 2 pharmacists, which is not true. It's quite a few pharmacists in that store, and all of them are not white. It's quite a few black pharmacists, and sometimes they switch out. But you know, she had to try to make it what she wanted to make to support her story, to support her narrative. And then I think it's some other things she trying to prove too. When I looked at her profile, I saw some other stuff they got going on that she trying to prove too. I ain't got nothing to do with that. I personally don't want to know. But yeah, so man, I ain't gotta lie about nothing. I ain't gotta lie about nothing, and boom. So my stance on race is this, based on my research, the things that I've read, the things that I've studied. You know, we grow up, they teach us all that we are part of these races, and they want us to believe that it's biological, that race is biological. But the truth is that race is not biological. Race is not a science. Race is a social construct. It only exists on paper. It only exists on paper. And the design of race is to objectify whiteness as supreme and everything else as lower, with black being at the bottom. So, and when it comes to humanity, the sad part about that, and we see how things are, man, just like this, I can't even say something like this without getting stigmatized, and all of a sudden I'm the bad guy and everything. But I didn't make this up. There's tons of books on this. But the sad part about that is that, you know, race dehumanized people, but the group of people that race dehumanized are actually dominant. 2 white people can't make a black person, but we can make white people all day. You know what I'm saying? The root of civilization is in Africa. When you study DNA, mitochondria, what they talk about, the woman who has that mitochondrial DNA and all this kind of stuff, where every phenotype comes from her. You know, so you have this what exists on paper saying one thing, is saying that everything is derogatory, but science says something different. So that's the reason why I wrote Us Divided by Race, because truly the only thing that separates us, the only thing that separates humanity, is this idea that we have called race, along with, you know, other, you got religion, you got class, you know, and all of those different kinds of divisions. And, you know, I think that probably just the way we are as people, we always going to find some way to separate ourselves and be different and all of these different kinds of things. And you can't stop it. But like I said, man, I've done a lot of research, a lot of reading and studying. Race don't have to be one of them. And I realize that everybody's not going to buy into that. That's going to piss some people off. I mean, that's what we got going on now. But at the very least, you don't have to hold on to ideas that put you at a disadvantage. And that's what black identity does. That's what they expect. You know, this woman expect me to be stupid. She expect me to be slow. She expect me to be all these derogatory things. And she assumes to know so much. She assumes to have all this knowledge. This woman talking like she knows what I intended. She said he knows what he meant. Yeah, I sure didn't know what I meant. But how do you know what I meant? Do you read minds? But, you know, because you stereotype me, because you assume so many things about me, you know what I mean? As you know, you assume also to be smarter. And so, man. But that's what it is. Welcome to America. That's how we do things over here. And that's all well and good, but I don't have to fall victim to it. And I also don't have to keep my mouth shut. And I also don't have to be ignorant to it. Because that's what I noticed too. People get upset. People feel some type of way, right? They feel some type of way, right? When you don't just go along with the status quo and go along with the bullshit. Because you ain't stupid, because you don't play stupid like them and fall into the same traps, fall for the same sins and trades that they do. And that's everybody. Shit, black people get mad at me. And that's okay too, you know. I'm not going to stop being me. I'm going to do what I do. So, I mean, if you want to find out anything more, you know, find out a little bit more about what I'm talking about, man. And I need people, you know what I'm saying? I need people to help with this movement, man. Just about educating people on these kind of things. Betterment, self-improvement. They tell us to lift ourselves up by the bootstraps. Well, there's so many ideals and things that we hold on to that's not working for us, but it's working against us. And I think white identity works against white people too. There's a social activist named Tim Wise that talks a lot about that. And I'll let him do it. That's not my experience, so I won't speak on it. That's just a thought. But, you know, just educating people and educating self. You know, I realize the best thing I can do is better myself. I really want to help people, you know. Help by not needing somebody to help me. And so a lot of that has to do with staying out of the traps, staying out of the jail, staying out the streets, staying out of the beef, staying away from the things that get you caught up. You know, you woke up that morning saying, yeah, I'm going to go to work and come home and watch a movie. You end up fired, or you end up in jail. You end up in a fight. You end up in some crazy situation based on your idealism, based on the company you keep, based on the things that you think you're supposed to do that you don't really have to do, but because of who you are and because of these ideals and because of this bullshit that you hold on to. And a lot of that has to do with race. You know, we got this system called race, and it's airtight to the point to where if I speak on it, there's mechanisms to it. This chick just came over here, sat down like she didn't got up, you know what I mean? Walked off like I said something that hurt her feelings. I wasn't even talking to you. You know what I'm saying? But it's all good, man. That's all. I just want to say that, get that across, man. You know, y'all check out the links or whatever, holler at me. I'm going to get on out of here. Peace.